Okay, I'm going to do just like a little update. I checked all the news, and yesterday I made a video because as a news watcher, they had a picture of somebody, a photograph on KIII online of a person who committed a bank robbery, described as about 6'3". And I thought it looked like somebody that I know. All right, I mentioned that yesterday. Basically, someone that's a cop who I don't dislike, right? Now, today I checked all the news. I did my posting and all. This will just be an update. I'll upload it right away. There is not a single media outlet that has that photo up online anymore. But yet, the top story, they always have, they're seeking for some type of crime or whatever. The top story, though, with no photo, is somebody also supposedly robbed a Home Depot on Monday. Okay, the robbery of a Home Depot would be bad, but they don't have a photo. I'm not saying they're making it up. I'm just saying, all right, the biggest help would be if you have a crime that's serious, you have a picture of the criminal, you put that online because some people could recognize the picture. But the suspect now they're looking for. Yesterday it was somebody that was about 6'3" that robbed a bank. That certainly looked like somebody I know. Not well, but I've met him multiple times. And now that's gone. They're looking for a non-photo person who's 5 foot tall, maybe 4'8". A midget robbed the Home Depot, and maybe like 140 pounds. All of a sudden, the public's mind is changed because we live in news cycles. And so you put a description, you put a face, okay, do I know anybody? Right away, all of a sudden, they're looking for a midget. Somebody 5 foot tall, 140 pounds. No picture, no photo. I would say a bank robbery with a photo should have been at least that picture left up on KIII TV, and it was taken down. When I discussed this last year about, different people, and what always upset me, some people that were familiar with the officer and his family kind of said they were like, he does things. Okay, I'm sure some officers do bad things. Not all officers do bad things. But the wife of the officer told a relative that somebody turned in his cell phone to the mayor, Joe McComb. Now, this might have been a year and a half ago. And these are all reliable sources. And I had asked on one of my previous videos, I said, for the Caller Times and local media to actually interview Joe McComb, who's now in a runoff for mayor, and to ask him if anybody ever turned in an officer's phone with child pornography on it. I'm not making this up. Now, whoever turned it in, I do not know, but it was somebody that had an officer's cell phone. Now, rightfully, Mr. McComb, from what I understood, contacted Chief Mike Markle, who I heard on Jim Lago about an hour ago, a local talk show. And Mr. Markle, police chief, supposedly they investigated. The officer had later claimed that the phone was stolen or reported as stolen, whatever, which would mean, okay, then if you have a phone with child porn on it, you go to prison. Supposedly they determined that because the officer reported the phone was stolen, that therefore there was nothing. Well, who downloaded it? Did the person who maybe was trying to set up the officer download porn? Somebody should have been investigated if there was a phone with child porn on it. But yet there was disciplinary action taken against this officer. His name is Mike. Okay? And he was demoted from detective to patrolmen. Okay, this is all that, I believe all of this is accurate. And I know him from in town because of family that lives in areas that are where he lives. But I noticed a month ago, I remember I was at Timmons, and officer came. Sometimes there's girls that are on the street from the other side of town, and they're just, they're struggling maybe with drugs or whatever. And a few times they brought them into Flower Bluff to Timmons, maybe to sort of like saying, we're going to give you a ride, and here is a mission that might help you, something of that nature. And that happened a few times in the last few months, which is it's a public service. It's good that maybe they tried to direct some of the girls that are having drug problems, maybe prostitution, like on that side, the other side of Corpus Christi. But then one day I said, I recognize that officer from somewhere. This was about a month ago. And I said, oh, it's a friend of mine. It was the same officer I'm talking. I noticed, and of course I don't. So he's now in Flower Bluff, which is where I live, which is fine. He's never done nothing to me or anything. But I just found it interesting that when I spoke on some of that all of a sudden he wound up over here. When Mr. Chief Markle today was on Jim Lago, and they were just discussing being careful, it was nothing really bad. Now, I will say this, Jim Lago said he's a radio talk show personality. I believe he lives in my subdivision. Just I've heard people say that, meaning Turtle Cove and Flower Bluff. But he said he saw somebody that was like going to rob somebody or something. I don't know if he was out with his wife or... And then Mr. Lago, he tries to come across as a tough guy. He said that he yelled out, I have a gun. Now he's talking to the police chief. He said the perpetrator then let go of the woman's package or whatever and ran. And that was kind of like jovial. But then they talked about like home invasions. And and Mr. Markle made the comment, he said, yes, these things happen. But he said it again, and this is a mindset that I feel there's zero accountability in this department here, the police department. But what he said was sort of like for the public not to worry, because any of these home invasions, they're targeting people that are in the drug world, that are in the criminal world. Therefore, sort of like if they're doing home invasions, murders, or whatever, it's sort of like the mindset is they deserve it. And even Mr. Lago made the comment, oh, they deserve it. Not to say that they're advocating to do it, but I've always felt that that was the mindset. Like, if there's certain criminal activity, that they're going to do their things, all right? And I think that's a wrong mindset. Now, I did this update because the local news, look, Facebook and social media, which I discuss a lot, they are getting tanked in the stock market. Again, yesterday, there's big problems. I've read a few things because I try to keep up on social media. Mark Zuckerberg was invited to attend some international, not a conference, but it was overseas in Europe somewhere. And all the countries that wanted Zuckerberg to answer to them as he had to do to Congress here in the United States. And he declined the invitation. He's worried that they're going to say, we're going to hold you. You're now in a foreign country, we're going to bring charges. Let me say, Facebook and even Mark Zuckerberg, there are media reports the last few days. Now the media is actually getting people that are like in the executive meetings that Zuckerberg has with the executives of Facebook, and they're having people leak what Zuckerberg said. He blamed this, he did that. They're treating him sort of like the media treats other people. And I'm sure Zuckerberg was mad, like, wait, we have leakers. So for the most part, Mr. Zuckerberg and Facebook really are in some liability, and possibly a criminal liability. Now, in the elections that I didn't even speak about, it is, for the Senate to have picked up a few Senate seats on the Republican side and then to have taken back the House, it wasn't what people refer to as a blue wave. And they made it look like, Trump suffered a very big defeat. Now, I'm nonpartisan. I'm not a Republican. I didn't vote for Trump. But what the media did was, if you went back to historic elections, there was only a few times where the sitting president in a midterm election gained seats in the Senate. Normally, you lose. Normally, I believe Mr. Obama lost more seats in the House and in the Senate during the midterms. I believe both flipped when Mr. Obama was president. So really, it was not a defeat at all for Mr. Trump, because to pick up those seats in the Senate was sort of a big thing. But the media is the way the media are. Mrs. Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi, she is accused of the Democrats of being anti-woman because they're challenging her to be the speaker, being the Democrats took over the House. Jim Clyburn, a black Democrat who holds particular positions in the House, he also accused others of being racist, his own party, meaning. He said people that were trying to remove Mr. Clyburn from his position in the Democratic House, they're doing dog whistles, meaning they're racist. So so this is just an update. I wanted to make that note. And if it was true, what was reported, and all you would have to do, media, is ask Mr. McComb if anybody in the last 2 years handed over a phone owned by an officer. And then if you cover that up, or if you deemed it was worthy to discipline that officer because other things on the phone, all right, that doesn't make sense to me. So I'll just end it with that. I don't believe we have an open. I believe that I critiqued the flesh bomb incident, various things that took place within our community in the last 5 years, and some of these things garnered national attention and criticism. But yet, we have talking points in this local community. Mr. Lago also had on Sean Strawbridge yesterday or the day before. I listened to different talk shows, local. I listened to Bob Jones as well. He's on a local talk show at the same time. It seemed, and Strawbridge was the person that was in charge of or still has a position of authority in the port of Corpus Christi. The mindset I have is sort of like, even if the media now took down every photo of a bank robber yesterday, I feel like the media feels like anything that would impact the community negatively, therefore they would even cover up crimes. Whether it's going back to the Vinales things in the Calder Times saying, oh, it was okay that he ran people over in the sense that he just got a ticket. And I feel like the media is more concerned, sort of like we've bowed the knee to the god of money in this community. And if it was exposed that there was a corruption or criminal, oh, it would be bad and we'd lose money, and therefore let's cover it up. Never mind the victims of the children that were on the damn child porn. So that's the sense I have. That's the sense I have. And when I spoke on some of those instances these last few years, particularly about that officer, it upset me because I had family that began to realize, like, fear. Even when I made that video yesterday with my friend Mike, I got to painting, I should mention it. That's yesterday's update video. I got it right here. Mike I had family members when they realized a certain officer might have been crossing the line in many areas. Many areas. There was almost like, oh, I don't ever want to say nothing. Like they're going to get us. What a disgrace that you'd have anybody, especially when you went into my daughter's, law enforcement illegally went into my daughter's residence, targeted her out at the ranch. What a disgrace. What an utter disgrace. You have citizens in this community that have legally armed themselves to defend themselves against rogue elements within law enforcement. And that illegal entry was made into my daughter's residence. I reported that. I spoke to the captain or sheriff out of Jim Wells County, and he agreed. He knew. What a disgrace. You deal with that shit as like it's a joke here. All right, I'll end it. Mike wanted, that's the beautiful painting Mike made. See it? And Mike, sometimes Mike has beautiful artwork. That's another one I got from Mike. And sometimes he gets upset and things happen in life, and then I go back a month later, what'd you do? Oh, I was mad, I painted over it, or whatever. And I'm like, Mike, you shouldn't, I would have got it from me. So he was low on cigarettes, and I give the guy cigarettes, but I had an extra full pack of Marlboro Blacks. And so Mike was asking me for another cigarette, which I would have given him one. And he's low on cash, but he had enough maybe to buy like one pack. So I went to my motorcycle, I got a full pack of Marlboro Black. Said, here's the deal. I'll give you this pack right now, and I get the painting. He really didn't want to give it up, I don't feel like I ripped Mike off. It's worth money, that painting. Look how beautiful he did that. But like I said, sometimes the beautiful work I've seen in the past, he'll paint over it or he's unhappy with it, and I'm like, no, it looks good the way it is, don't change it. So I feel like I maybe did a service. Okay? The Padre. That the world may see this region.